Going on to all my Peacemaker fans out there, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again, breaking down the latest episode of HBO Max's Peacemaker Episode 5, an episode in which we see our team getting closer together, but yet again, can we trust Adebayo as she does something very sneaky in this episode? But speaking of Adebayo, we're definitely talking about that ending and so much more in this spoiler review. But before we break it all down, make sure you're checking me out on all my other social media accounts. If you're new to the channel, we're on the quest to 20,000 subscribers, so if you want to be a part of the community, make sure you're subscribed and you're hitting that notification bell. And as you can see on the screen now, if you enjoyed this spoiler review of Peacemaker Episode 5, make sure to like the review, share the review, but more importantly, once you've seen this episode, what'd you think about it? Your pros, your cons, the funniest joke in this episode, the best moment for you in this episode, and also what is going on with this diary? What's inside the diary? Can we trust this new character, Captain Locke? And what do you think Crimson is going to do with Adebayo after the end of this episode? Let's talk about it all in the comments below. So just giving you all my initial thoughts. I just finished the episode maybe like 20 minutes ago. I enjoyed it for the most part, but I'm not going to lie. I felt like the previous 4 episodes, each episode was better than the last. I personally think episode 4 was way better than episode 5, and I think it's the best episode of the season so far. But the main thing with me in this episode, the comedy beats, and I've been saying this for the last couple weeks, not all the jokes land for me, but this week some of the jokes just felt a little bit too dry for my personal taste. But speaking positively on this episode, I love the crew coming together. I love that I still don't know if I can trust Adebayo, and now that she knows about Clemson, that's so interesting and so fascinating. But I'm so curious on what Clemson's endgame is, what's Waller up to, what's in that diary, and can we trust his new character in Captain Locke? Each week, even though this wasn't my favorite episode, it gives me more questions. It gives me more intrigue on what's to come. So again, there was some criticism that I have about it, but for the most part, I enjoyed it. But I thought that episode 4 was just I was more invested in that narrative. But again, let me know your thoughts in the comments. As we break it all down, we open up with Eagly trying to cheer up Chris after he had his moment thinking about his brother last week. Meanwhile, we get Adebayo and her wife having a little bit of a conversation. Her wife's still left in the dark. And the thing I said this last week, these two characters have so much in common, and I think they have even more in common because they have two characters, Eagly and then Adebayo's wife. They want to help out their loved ones, and I think right now, go ahead and put it in the books, one of those characters is going to either A, be kidnapped or unfortunately die. Let me know what you think. Is Adebayo's wife going to be harmed or killed, or would it be Eagly? I don't want neither one of them to die or get hurt, but I think that's what the show is trying to tell us. Let me know your thoughts on that. But as we move on, we continue to see Waller is pressing her daughter to plant that diary in Chris's trailer. And I just have to ask you all now, what do you think is in that trailer, or in regards to that diary, I should say? Is it some evidence that's going to make him go back to the Suicide Squad and be placed in prison again? What exactly is so important about that diary? Let's theorize that for a second. But it's in this moment here that we kind of also learn about the butterflies, or I should say getting butterflied, as we learn that they potentially can go up the butt of all these kind of high profile people, and they're picking these high profile people because we obviously know if there ever were to be an alien invasion, high profile people is the way to go to get influence and try to take over the world, if that's what the butterflies are trying to do. But listen, we get the jokes, right? As far as our Justice League characters, Aquaman was episode 1, Batman was episode, last week that we got, and this week we hear a joke, or I should say maybe a fetish of a sorts. We hear that Superman is into poop. So it's just a matter of time that we're going to get a Wonder Woman joke, we're going to get a Flash joke, a Cyborg, a Martian, a Manhunter, Green Lantern. The jokes are so funny to me, and I know it's James Gunn just poking fun of the DC, but I'm just curious on who the next Justice League member they're going to poke fun of. But Superman and poop, very weird, Soups, very weird, and of course, it's true because it's on Google, right? But as we see, our crew is tasked with going and looking to the location that Adebayo found last week. Meanwhile, Crimson, the mysterious butterfly himself, he meets with a character by the name of Captain Locke, who another obscure DC character that I'm not too familiar with, but he works for Waller yet again. It makes me wonder, what's her connection to this story? What is she into? Does she know that Crimson is the butterfly? Let's talk about Captain Locke and what we can expect from that character this season as we get the return of the couple that we met in episode 2 and 3. Detective Song finds out that the fingerprints doesn't match with Chris's dad, that it was indeed Peacemaker, and we see at this moment she's trying to really get the father out of jail and find Peacemaker. That's like her main objective this season. But I have to say, the highlight for me this week was when we go to the food distribution center. The action in this episode was fantastic. Even though I thought last week was cool, this week's was funny action because we get the homemade bomb by Peacemaker. We get the X-ray vision as to him and Adebayo walk into the distribution center, and immediately he's shooting them in the head. I love that moment, and I love that callback to the X-ray helmet that we'll talk a little bit about later. But we can't forget, mentioned last week, I didn't think that was a throwaway line with the missing Charlie Gorilla, and he makes his return in this episode as he takes out most of the crew, and the person that saved them a couple weeks ago, taking out Judo Master, he steps up again with a chainsaw. He splits the Charlie Gorilla in the chest, blood everywhere, and that's the moment where the team finally comes together. We even see Hardcore taking a picture of this moment, soaking it all in. We all know, if you've seen enough superhero movies, action movies, when a team does something well, it's only a matter of time that the team's going to get split up, and I think it's a matter of time that things are going to kind of fall apart. But I love that they were able to have that moment, embrace each other, but I don't think it's going to last that much longer in the coming weeks. But we go back to seeing that Captain Locke steps in. He intervenes with the whole fingerprint situation. Detective Song isn't a fan of him. She goes over her head, meets with her uncle, which I thought it was funny that her uncle's name was Judge Judy. Very funny. It'll be really interesting to see what comes of all of this kind of disruption with Captain Locke and Detective Song, and if she will find out the truth of what's really going on, and of course what's going to happen with the White Dragon being in jail. But important to remember, when Clemson sends all of them home, sends the crew home, he's left with all the material that they found, and it's not a coincidence that he wanted to have them rest for the night, because I think it's so interesting to know what Clemson's endgame is. Is he a good butterfly? Does he want to destroy the evidence? Does he want to learn? Like, I'm so curious on what the differences of the butterflies are, how some of them are like, mindless creatures that want to kill, how some of them are in a position of power, how someone like Crimson wants to take them out. I'm not really too sure to think of it, what to make of it so far, but I'm loving that mystery aspect. But wrapping up the episode, I love the little Easter eggs that we get as we see Adebayo gets invited into Chris's trailer, and which, by the way, the whole lesbian joke with the whole, his, particular part of his body, I thought that was a funny little moment there. But the Easter egg of the week, as she makes her way into his house, I don't know if you all saw the little poster, but we saw that Peacemaker caught one of Batman's most famous, well-known villains, Kite Man, which is so funny. Condiment King, Kite Man. Batman Rogue Gallery is the best, but he has some of the most weirdest villains as well. Kite Man being one of them. But we get another moment with Adebayo, who is really good at making people trust her and, having quieter moments. She did that with Vigilante last week. We get it this week as she's giving him Chris advice on how to make people like him more. He goes to the bathroom. We can't forget who she is the daughter of, which is Amanda Waller. She plants that diary in his house. Again, what's the significance of the diary? What's the context of the diary? As we end with Adebayo going back to their headquarters, meeting with Crimson, who again is left with all that important information that they found early in the episode. She puts on Peacemaker's helmet, activates the X-ray vision, super excited, makes her way over to Crimson. She sees that he's a butterfly. He attacks very similar to the butterflies. He has the same kind of attributes of the other butterflies as far as being in attack mode. She runs outside. He catches her. We end the episode. Again, my question for you all, let's talk about it in the comments now because we're talking all spoilers. What is Crimson's endgame? What's the difference between a good butterfly and a bad butterfly? Why are they targeting high-profile people? Are there someone can trust? What's the big plan with the butterflies? Again, Amanda Waller. What's the deal with Captain Locke? And of course, going back to if they can make a gorilla, butterfly, what other animals, creatures can they do the same of? I would love if they would bring King Shark back into this show some way, somehow, and get him into the mix. Who knows? Again, I would love to see more Suicide Squad characters. My number one being Bloodsport, because obviously Peacemaker and Bloodsport have beef. And again, King Shark making a cameo, that would be pretty cool. But again, the big thing is what is in that diary that Amanda Waller wants to plant, or now not wants to plant because it's now in Peacemaker's trailer. what's going to happen when it's found, and what's inside of it. I want to know your thoughts on that. Thoughts, theories, pros, cons, favorite moments, least favorite moments. Again, my only criticism with these episodes so far is the comedy beats. Not all the jokes land to me. They just go on way too long. They're not all that funny. I think of when they're in the truck and they're talking about the different bands. I'm thinking about the bullying scene, and some of those jokes to me, it's just like, can we move on to the next scene, James Gunn? I know you think it's funny. Comedy is very subjective, but again, that's just my main criticism with the show so far. The prolonged jokes that just don't stick with me personally. But narratively speaking, the mystery box is all there. The characters, I love it. So again, another good episode of Peacemaker. Not my favorite, but I still enjoyed it. But again, let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you stuck around to this point of the video, I appreciate you. Before you leave, make sure to like, share, comment below, and of course, subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 20,000 subscribers. I appreciate all the support, and make sure you're hitting that notification bell as well. But that's my thoughts. Thank you for watching this review. Hope you're staying safe. As you can see on the screen now, subscribe to my channel, check out my other content, and we'll catch you on the next review of Peacemaker.